Hello there, fellow teachers. So this video is 10 tips for managing conversation in an English class. So this video is aimed at teachers who teach teens or adults from elementary up to advanced level. So basically any students who can string a sentence together and have a basic conversation. So before we start, I just want to let you know that personally I teach one-to-one in small groups, so up to about 6 people at a time. But these tips will work for larger groups too. You might just sometimes have to split them up into smaller groups or into pairs. So let's go. Tip number 1, let it flow. If students are all chatting together when you walk into the classroom, you don't want to stop the conversation and say, hello, I'm here, now we're doing present perfect or whatever. You want to be listening out to what they're talking about. They might be talking in their native language, so for me it's often in French. They're chit-chatting about what's happened in their week, their problems, their boyfriend who dumped them, or their lawnmower that broke or whatever. So the ideal thing to do is to go in and just be listening out and try to sneakily become part of the conversation and then veer it into English and then just let it flow. So tip number 2. Ask about students' lives. So people love talking about themselves. So if there's no natural conversation already happening at the beginning of the lesson, ask them questions about their week, you say. What's new? Any stories to tell? Anything to share with the group about what's happened in your week? Just be careful not to ask closed questions where the answer is yes or no. So if you go in and say, oh, hi guys, did you have a good week? People will just look at you and, yes. You need to ask questions that will spark conversation. Number 3, mix it up. So be very careful not to ask the same question at the beginning of every lesson. This is a mistake I made when I started out teaching. I would always ask, so what did you do this week? And the first time it's great and you have some interesting answers, and the 50th time people sort of, not that question again. So number 4, conversation starters. So now I'm going to give you a few more ideas of ways to get the conversation going. Some of these ideas, by the way, are taken from the book Teaching Unplugged, which is a great book by Scott Thornberry and Luke Meddings. I highly recommend it, and I'll probably do a video about it later. So, number 1 of these conversation starters would be best in 24. So the idea of this is you ask a question like, what is the best thing you ate in the last 24 hours? But you can change the verb. What's the best thing you saw in the last 24 hours? You can change the superlative. So what's the worst thing you saw on TV in the last week? Doesn't have to be 24 hours. You get the idea. Another one is something you did. You can ask, tell me something you did with somebody else. Or you can change it. Tell me something you did alone. Tell me something you did that was a success. Tell me something you did that was a failure. And you can just create other ideas like that. Another one is assumptions. So you can get people to ask each other, to make assumptions about each other's lives. So if they already know each other a little bit, or even if they don't know each other, it can be funny. So Mary can say to John, I assume or I suppose you went to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning last night. And John, oh no, I didn't. Or yes, I did. And some funny things can come out of that kind of assumption. Another one is same time, different day. So you could ask students, what were you doing specifically at 4 p.m. yesterday, for example, or at 2 a.m. this morning? And sometimes you'll get, I was ironing, or I was having an argument with my child, or something like that. You can get some interesting conversations going with that kind of question. That could be adapted to other tenses. So, what will you be doing this evening at 6:15 p.m., for example? Okay, so number 5, students ask the questions. Often the teacher gets used to always asking the questions and always having all the responsibility on them for getting conversation going. So you can just say, right guys, your turn. Ask each other questions. So, Bill ask Bob a question, Bob ask her a question, or you can just get them all to ask you questions, because often students like asking or finding out about the teacher's life. Number 6, mute teacher. if you're just fed up of talking, you can just say to your students at the beginning of the lesson, okay, for 5 minutes or for 3 minutes or whatever, I'm not going to say anything. Zip. And they'll all be looking at you like, oh no, oh, what do we do? What do we say? And after a minute or so of awkwardness, someone will start saying something and talking, and they'll just realize they have to create the conversation themselves, and you can't say anything. But you can be noting down some grammar mistakes and stuff. Number 7, interviews. So this is a way to spice it up a bit. You can get people to interview each other or interview you about your life, but just pretending that you're a famous person. So you might say, so Kathy, nice to talk to you. Tell me, what's your favorite food? And you just pretend you're on a talk show, so it just adds a bit of spice to it. 8. This one is tell us about your life in so year. So this one is you're going into the memories of people. So if you've got slightly older students, you might ask, so can you tell me about a day in your life in 1985, or 1952? Or if it's younger teens, tell me about when you were 5 years old. What were you like? What did you like doing? Where did you live? And some great conversation can come out of that kind of question. Okay, number 9, digressions. Often when an interesting conversation starts happening, you'll start on one topic, it will go on to another topic and another and another. This is great. So just let it happen. Don't stop it for the sake of doing something you prepared. The best thing to happen in a lesson is a great conversation where everyone goes away buzzing because they've talked about loads of interesting things. And also this is good because it means that whatever you've prepared in the lesson, you can use that for next week and you don't need to prepare. Great. Number 10, noting down grammar points. So while conversation is happening in class, it's a good idea not to butt in every time there's a grammar or pronunciation mistake. Just discreetly note it down, and you'll be able to come back to it later. And this will help for the natural flow of the conversation as well. And number 11, yes, there's a bonus one. This is just kind of a psychological tip for teachers, if you can say that. Basically, during a conversation, just try as a teacher to keep calm. Don't get too excited, because you might, while someone's saying something, you might be thinking, oh yeah, and now I could ask this question, and we can talk about that, and it's great. And the thing is that you might be noting down ideas for other things to jump to in the conversation, but by the time you've got a moment to speak, that everyone's talking about something else already. So just forget it, let it flow. Also, be careful to not talk too much. Try to hold back a little bit. You might be wanting to ask questions and you might be getting too excited, Just let the students do most of the talking. That's always better. And one more thing is that if there is a silence, don't be too scared of them. Often it's tempting, the moment there's a silence, you panic and think, oh, okay, right now, okay, let's do this activity, or let's talk about this. Just let the silence last for a few seconds, and often people will naturally want to fill it in, so that will get conversation going again. So that's it for today, folks. Let me know in the comments if you've got any other ideas of things to do during conversation, or conversation tips. And I'll see you in a later video. Bye-bye.